up, guys? I wanted to come back today and just talk to you about a few things that I've even discovered with my own writing. So, full disclaimer, while working on my current web, I finished the actual writing, but now I'm in the editing phase. And I had to take a step back and be like, wait a minute, Sherri, what is going on? So I wanted to come on and share with you guys a few of the things that I have discovered even in my own writing, and I've been writing for a while now. Things that I've seen in my own writing that I know other people may be struggling with as well. So 5 things that will peg you as an amateur writer. 5 things, well that's 10. 5 things that peg you as an amateur writer. So if you see me looking down, guys, I'm looking at my notes. First things first, excessive punctuation. Y'all, when you're writing, and as I'm hearing the things in my head and I'm acting out scenes, like you don't do it. I act out scenes. So I tend to put a lot of punctuation in my writing when I'm in my drafting phase. And in drafting phase, anything goes. As long as you get it down on the paper, I don't care. But that does peg you as an amateur writer. If this mistake is following you into your completed manuscript, something needs to be looked at and revised. So I love exclamation points. I love exclamation points. I love exclamation points. So I use them a lot. But in reality, this is not something that someone who wants to take writing as a profession should be doing. So I do a lot of exclamation points, but there's also the multiple question marks, and then, oh my God, there's the question mark exclamation point. We do it. I do it. If you don't do it, something wrong with you. But if you're using a lot of punctuation, is either your dialogue or your action or both are not strong enough. What you want to make sure with your writing is that your action should already give and inform your reader as to how your character is going to be speaking in that moment. Your writing should already reflect emotion on its own. So when your character is speaking, you don't need to be using 4 exclamation points to convey that they are upset. If an upsetting incident has happened and your character is responding, context clues should be able to inform your reader that, hey, my character is upset. So we always want to make sure our action, and if there's a heated argument going on, obviously your character will probably be a bit more upset in a heated argument versus me sitting here talking to you like this. That should automatically give a clue to your reader as to what's going on. So the unnecessary, excessive use of punctuation is not necessary. And also for me, I am a fan of ellipses, honey. Exclamation points and ellipses. I do it a lot in my poetry, and a lot of it is when you're writing to yourself and you take that long pause, that dramatic pause. So you think that it's necessary in the actual final products, but really it's not. A simple comma, a simple stopping up the sentence would have achieved the same results. Word choice plays a big role in this also, guys, and more on that later because there are some things to work on with that too. But word choice, again, going back to your writing and your dialogue, should convey the emotion already. Let's use an example. So let's use the example of he yelled at her. Instead of saying he yelled at her, you could say he screamed at her until his throat burned. So now when he's speaking, when the character is speaking, you already know how he is reacting. You already know how he sounds. Your action already conveyed to your reader exactly what was going on. Number 2, the know-it-all syndrome. Look, I get it. You've done your research. You've learned how to do a procedure. You've learned the technical terms. You've done all that you need to do to make a realistic story. You've got browser pages full. You've got binders full of research. And then you can't let that research go to waste. So you put it all in your dialogue, or worse, in an info dump. I get it. Is it right? No. Guys, especially as a historical author, I write mostly historical fiction and the subgenre historical fantasy. So a lot of world building is involved in this. You're taking real life people, real life situations, and making a fantastical story out of it. I get it. And with things like this, you don't want walls of text. We've all seen those books where page after page after page after page is nothing but info dumping. Guys, stop it. Look, unless you're a prodigy, writing is going to take research. Unless you're a doctor and a lawyer and an engineer with a solid understanding of outer space and its workings, and then you moonlight as a funeral director that specializes in time travel, you are going to have to research as an author, as a writer. There is no escaping it, and you want your world to seem as realistic as possible, but you don't need to slap it in us all the time. So how do you fix this? Number 1, do not relay too much information at one time. I would say, general rule of thumb, a paragraph, maybe 2 at the most, 3, you're really pushing it, 4 is a no-no, paragraphs of information that is relevant to the story at the time. So if we have an outer space commandant that is fixing a spaceship, we don't need to know NASA's step-by-step processes and procedures of how to fix a spaceship. Use the information that you have and condense it. Our job as writers is to manipulate language so that the character seems more knowledgeable than they really are. Our job is to condense information. Well, how would we know that a doctor is smart? He's a doctor, number 1. He's able to research. He's able to come up with a diagnosis and a prognosis. He's able to come up with a plan of treatment. So there by his actions, we know that a doctor is smart. So in the same token, when you're writing, your character and their occupation and whatsoever should already inform the reader of how they would operate in a specific situation. Now, if a specific situation comes up where they're going to have to showcase that knowledge, 1 to 2 sentences at the most, one to 2 paragraphs at the absolute max, guys. Trust me, I've had to learn this. Another thing, you want your character or your book, your story, to have as much historical relevance. You want to have as much historical relevancy as possible. This is especially for historical authors. Information changes. New discoveries are made. How we think an ancient culture may have lived 10 years from now, that information may be outdated. So what do? We keep what's relevant to the story only. All those hard and fast facts, hard and fast rules do not need to make it into the story, because we want, if our children's children read our books 200 to 300 years from now, they can still look back and be completely immersed into the story, immersed into the world, without having to be pulled out by, say, wait a minute, that fact isn't true, you know? And this is especially for historical authors. Facts change, guys, and that's just the way life is. And cultural norms change. So my suggestion, keep your information as broad and as relevant as possible, but you don't want to go with hard and fast rules. Of course, you know, human nature, these things, and if it's a completely made up world and you're making up your own mores and your own values, so be it, so done. But I'm talking specifically to historical authors. For example, I'll give you a perfect example of this. My current manuscript is based in ancient Egypt, and I've researched for this topic, and one of the characters very loosely based on a famous ancient Egyptian queen. Now, when I researched this 2-3 years ago, with the then current knowledge, tomb being discovered and so forth and so on, you know, turns out, my luck, that archaeologists are now disputing whether or not they've actually found the true tomb. So what does that mean for my story? Whoops, guess what? I can't use that element now, because if the disputes turn out to mean something, and the tomb that they originally thought was the queen, it turns out not to be the queen, my facts are wrong. And someone reading this story 2, 3, 5, 10, 1,500 years from now can point to that, and that pulls them out of the world and say, wait a minute, this ain't true. You know, so little tidbit, especially to my historical hard facts writers out there. Number 3. And this is something that I discovered especially during my editing phase. Come on. Needless scenes. Guys, we've all been there. The tone is right. The characters are right. The right place, the right situation. It's a banging scene. And then we go back into editing, and guess what? It doesn't fit the plot. It doesn't fit the pacing. Something is off that makes that scene not work, and it pains us. It pains us to go back and contemplate getting rid of the scene. But guess what, guys? Plot and pacing are precedent over preference. Look at that little internal, what's that? The repetition. Look at that internal repetition, guys. What? Plot and pacing are precedent over preference, guys. Remember that. You don't want to sacrifice your story's integrity just because we cannot let go of a specific scene. What are you going to do? Rewrite the whole manuscript around this one scene? If that's what you got to do it. But I'm not going to do it. So I would rather cut that one scene. Now, if you're having issues or you don't know whether or not the scenes should go, this is where betas are super handy. Betas and critique partners. They can tell you and pinpoint, hey, this doesn't work. Hey, this needs to go. And listen, guys, listen to them. Don't hold on to it just because it's your favorite. Unless you're going to rewrite the whole book, I would suggest you listen to that advice. Number, what am I on? Four? Y'all know I don't count. 4. Number 4. Needless words. Now, this is twofold. We have the filler words that are just, I don't know what's going on with Sherri. Sherri likes filler words when she's writing her first draft. Sue me. So, but filler words, and also words that make you want to seem smart. Don't do it. So let's start with fillers. So I have a little sentence written down here for you guys. Just so you know, words such as was, as, that, so. These are filler words that are not necessary all the time, because there are times when they are needed. They're not necessary all the time to get a point across. So for example, I wrote a little sentence down for you. As she walked into the garden, she saw a big statue that was so big she had to crane her neck so she could see. How many filler words were in that? Whereas if I rewrote the sentence into something like, she walked into the garden, craning her neck to see the statue. It's clear, it's concise, it's to the point. It's not long, it's not verbose. It's clear and it's simple, but it got the point across and painted a picture in your mind a lot more clear than the previous sentence where it had all those filler words in there. So guys, remember, less is more. Keep it simple. And then the next part of that is the writing to seem intelligent. I'm an author, darling. I'm smarter than you. You know, that attitude. Hey, I've been guilty of it. So I'm not judging. I'm not judging, guys. I've been guilty of it. So instead of trying to sound smart, and I wrote another sentence for you guys just to give an example. Have you run out of words? Did you use the same word 10 times in the same sentence or in the same paragraph? Are you tempted to rip off Merriam-Webster? Don't do it. You guys remember that commercial, that Comcast commercial? Instead of saying she annihilated and obliterated the pie, a simple, she ate the pie in one bite, gets the point across. It's simple. It's not verbose. It's not grandiose. And it's a whole lot less annoying. We've all read those sentences where it's like, you just ripped off the thesaurus, didn't you? I could pick it out right away. I'm sure you can too. You just snatched it out of the thesaurus. Shame. For shame. And number 5, perhaps the most grievous sin of all. And I have been guilty of it. Sue me. But number 5, the most grievous sin that would make you an amateur writer, bar none, hands down, in everybody's book. Identical characters. They sound the same. They have the same mannerisms. They have the same idiosyncrasies. They have the same... You can't tell them apart on the page. That is a problem. We want to read and be a part of a world that, though it has its differences, is not unlike our own. And every world you go to, unless they're cybernetic clones that are designed to have no personality, I mean, that could work. Hey, do you. But 9 times out of 10, identical characters are boring. Nobody wants to read that, guys. Come on. So how do we make it better? If you have two characters who are identically the same, you can either merge them together into one character, all of their dialogue, all of their scenes that they're in, merge them into one character. That's one way to fix it. Secondly, get rid of one of the characters. If one is already there, you don't need the next one. Take time. Number 2, take time to develop your characters before you even begin to write. Now, a lot of pantsers have an issue with this. Plotters, they have a tendency to plot so much, develop their characters so much that they begin to sound robotic. But then you have pantsers who, while their story may not sound robotic, they still are lacking key organizational principles when it comes to writing, which is developing the characters and fleshing them out. To develop your characters, the way they talk, their internal dialogue, their mannerisms, their tics. Not everyone, but most people tend to have some type of verbal idiosyncrasy, some type of tic. I know quite a few people that will scratch their eyes or rub their ears or not make, direct eye contact when they're lying, or when they're nervous, they'll start to laugh in the most inappropriate of situations. So each person is unique. Take time to develop your characters before you begin to put them on the page. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. This is Sherri Genesys, Good Girl Chronicles. Check me out, sherrigenesys.com, where you can read a little bit about my whip, and follow me over on Instagram, and I'll see you out. Good Girl Chronicles. Bye.